Since the start of this project, I've been coming back to a quote from G.K. Chesterton. It's become known as Chesterton's fence. He says this: "There exists in such a case a certain institution or law, let us say, for the sake of simplicity, a fence or a gate erected across a road. The more modern type of reformer goes gaily up to it and says, 'I don't see the use of this. Let us clear it away.' To which the more intelligent type of reformer will do well to answer, 'If you don't see the use of it, I certainly won't let you clear it away. Go away and think. Then, when you can come back and tell me that you do not see a use for it, I may allow you to destroy it." When information and ideas travel across the world in milliseconds like they do today, it's natural to feel like change happens incredibly fast. And that feeling is rooted in truth. It can make us feel like these long-standing fences around us are being constantly replaced. Our trust in institutions and experts, expectations for leaders, desires and identities of local communities. Our goal with this season has been to pause, to understand what's in front of us before we rush to change or rebuild it. To understand things, the contexts and the varying perspectives of experts about those things. Not necessarily to arrive at an easy verdict, but to think with curiosity about what might be changing and why. If you're expecting us to come out with a clear resolution for A or B, I think you might be disappointed, because that was never the point of this. Over the past 3 episodes, we've covered models, mechanics, historical contexts, and arguments for and against. And that's all important work. But these conversations aren't simply technical questions. They're human ones. Local government shapes the places and people we care deeply about, all of us. Our families, the physical places, whether they be restaurants or parks, where we make meaningful memories. The organizations that we care about, or that care for our neighbors, the future our kids and grandkids will inherit. And if talking openly about these things helps us to understand why those fences might have been there in the first place, then it's a conversation worth having. It strengthens us as a community. So why is Sevenfold, a strategy consulting company, talking about these things? Well, because our work is to help leaders think and lead well in their local communities and organizations. And that means slowing down, asking honest questions, and making more space for reflections than conclusions. Wide Open is an extension of the mission of Sevenfold, a place to explore the kinds of questions we engage with our clients every day. And this season, the question of local government structure emerged from our own hometown community here in Wichita. We heard renewed conversations about whether the council-manager form was still the best model for our community. But more than that, what we see in this is an opportunity. It's a window through which we can explore the effect of a changing age on familiar leadership structures and models, or fences. But if this kind of thoughtful wrestling resonates with you or sparks questions inside your own organization, we'd welcome the chance to be a part of it. This is the work that we love to do. And hey, small plug here, if you have topics or ideas for the next season, please don't hesitate to send them our way. But back to the subject at hand, local government. Albert Einstein once said, "The framing of a problem is often more essential than its solution." In other words, in our quest to understand, are we asking the right questions? Is it an either or? Is it strong mayor or council manager? As we heard from our experts, it's not really a question of whether one or both of those models work. It's more of a question of translating these options to the desires and the needs and the vision of a local community. Indeed, leadership doesn't really happen in a vacuum. It exists within a real context with real people, real problems. So maybe the better question is, what kind of leadership does your community need? What do we expect from those who lead our communities, and are those fair expectations? Or perhaps the biggest question, what's the relationship between the leadership and structure? Because no structure automatically guarantees good leadership. And I think we've also seen that no structure automatically prevents it. So what do our neighboring and regional cities do? Let's go on a field trip. Let's take a deeper look at Oklahoma City and Omaha. All right, now if I'm being honest, if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have told you that Oklahoma City was a strong mayor city. I'm not sure why, but it may be due to their growth over the last 15 years. The consistent and sustained support for their MAPS program, which we'll get to in a second, and their burgeoning sense of civic identity. It all felt like singular, bold leadership with a strong mayor at the helm. But the reality is, it's not a strong mayor model. It's a council manager model. In Oklahoma City, the at-large elected mayor and the city council, which comprises 8 total council members, they set policy and direction. But the city manager, who's appointed by the council, handles all the day-to-day operations of the city. It adopted this model in 1927, but decades later, the city was struggling. The energy banking crisis of the 1980s hit Oklahoma City hard, and economic development opportunities were limited due to a perceived low quality of life in the area. The mayor at the time, along with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber and other business leaders, proposed a sales tax to raise capital to fund several downtown projects designed to increase the community's quality of life. It passed, barely. But listen, here's the remarkable thing. New iterations of the MAPS plan were carried forward by 3 mayors following the original mayor who led the first initiative. And similarly, there have been 4 Oklahoma City city managers since the MAPS plan began. For over 30 years, the MAPS plan, in similar structure and process, has been carried forward by different mayors, different city managers, different city councils, and it continues to this day. The effect? Well, since 2010, the Oklahoma City metropolitan area has grown by 19%, adding almost 240,000 residents. The economy has diversified. All of this under a council manager model. So what are our takeaways from this field trip? Well, the first, I think, is long-term, bold leadership is possible under a council manager model. Elected officials can drive vision. City managers can ensure competence and performance. The business community can maintain alignment, and the public oversight of these things can reinforce community trust. And secondly, a common vision or a community project can really unite a city and support a growing civic identity. And third, stable, visionary leadership of elected officials, city staff, community coalitions can accomplish a heck of a lot over time. In the end, Oklahoma City shows us that a city's success may involve its structure, but it's not the sum total of it. It's about the vision, the coalitions, the trust, and the effective leadership that drive communities forward. What Oklahoma City tells us is that a council manager form of government can be a platform rather than a speed bump for this kind of leadership. All right, ready for another field trip? Let's go to Omaha. Omaha's another example. Similar to Oklahoma City, I was unaware of its form of government. I thought maybe being in the Midwest and appearing similar to a place like Wichita, that they'd operate with a council manager form of government, just like we do. But I was wrong again. In reality, Omaha operates with a strong mayor form of government, with the mayor as the chief executive who appoints department heads and carries other operational authority, including veto power over the 7-member city council. Similar to Oklahoma City, and for that matter, many Midwest cities, Omaha battled potential decline 30 years ago. But of late, the city has enjoyed growth, recently topping 1 million in population. Its economy is diversified and strong, and it's in growth mode now. Just look at the fact that since 2000, Omaha has seen roughly $4.5 billion invested in its downtown, and it's enjoyed a renewed focus on investing in heritage and placemaking features of its downtown civic identity. And in terms of continuity, Omaha has had 4 mayors over the last 30 years. Through Democrats and Republicans, a common refrain was continued investment in the downtown area and a general favor for the community's growth. In Omaha, Gene Stothert served as mayor for 12 years. from 2013 to just recently, in 2025. In May of 2025, John Ewing Jr. beat Jean Stothert, who was seeking her fourth term as mayor. Upon his victory, Mayor-elect Ewing remarked that many of the former mayor's staff would stay on board, noting that the staff that served under Stothert was the most qualified group of people prepared to serve under him. He said, quote, "What I found in transitions is if you create fear, you lose the best people because they have the opportunities to go places." End quote. There's something remarkable about this. First, it signals that a strong mayor model can hold city staff, their expertise, their experience, in high regard. This form isn't incongruent with the important work of public servants at the local level. Second, it tells us that in a strong mayor context, continuity and stability between administrations truly is possible, regardless of political affiliation. Oklahoma City, Omaha, two different cities, two different forms of local government, and yet both cities grew consistently over time, even through changes in leadership. Though they had different models, both succeeded. Which brings us back to perhaps our new central question of this season. Leadership and structure are linked, but they're not the same thing. So what is the relationship between leadership and structure in local government? Does one matter more? Does one flow from the other? In our quest to evaluate the structure, have we overlooked the heart and soul of the question? So we turn once again to our experts. I asked Dr. Fox this question. What matters more, the structure of government or the leader who inhabits that structure?
Well, I mean, it's going to be one of those, chicken and egg questions. There's no clear line that says this is the point where the character or the personality or the expertise of the mayor matters, and this is the point where the structure matters. I think the structure matters enormously because of the temptation that I mentioned earlier in the interview for people to say, well, I'm not really accountable for this. We can't do anything about this. This is out of our hands. So structure absolutely matters. But yeah, I mean, there are great examples of mayors that come forward, city council members that come forward in council manager systems, and through their hard work, through the force of their personality, through, the creative connections they build through the community, they're really able to build up some momentum to get things done.
I asked Kathy Sexton as well. What would you say is more important in terms of bringing about the kinds of services and outcomes and growth in our local communities through local government? Is it the quality of our leadership, or is it the structures in which that leadership leads?
The notion of structure versus style or of leadership is huge, and I love the way you frame that, because ideally you would have good on both, but I'm in complete agreement. Well-meaning people trying to do good things and trying to engage people and not just do what I think's right, but trying to really engage and consider all perspectives is huge and more important than form. If we're talking about form, I guess I would always want to say, well, have you considered relationships? Have you considered putting the time and the energy into this new elected position you've gotten yourself into here? And are you talking with your colleagues, and are you coming up with new ideas, and are you forming relationships? Or are you, blaming form or just wanting more power and authority because you think that's the only way to fix it? Well, authority only goes so far in government. There's always someone to disagree with you once you make a decision. But if a decision is made by the entire council, then that decision is going to last longer and hold up longer than a decision made by one mayor, for example, who may or may not be there 4 years from now. I don't think this is a question about a manager versus a mayor. A manager will never take the place of an elected official. We, in public administration, we work for the elected officials. We only do what they empower us to do by a majority vote. But that's the beauty of democracy and local government, is that every city has more than just a mayor. They have an entire council or commission. Those people need to talk to each other and have conversations in public and explore and reach agreements, reach consensus sometimes, but for sure meet in the middle and make majority level decisions. That's what we're all about as Americans.
This reminds me of the two kinds of leadership described by Jim Collins in a follow-up to his seminal work, Good to Great in the Social Sectors, which honestly kind of sounds like a band name to me anyway. In that book, he talks about executive leadership and legislative leadership. In executive leadership, he describes a leader who has formal authority to make decisions, change structures, move resources across an organization, hire and fire, and set direction. He says this model works well only if the executive leader actually has the executive authority to do it. And even then, it only works when it's paired with discipline and humility and a commitment to something larger than themselves. On the other hand, Collins also describes legislative leadership. This leadership model exists where the leader does not have executive authority to change things by force of will. Instead, they have to rely on persuasion, relationships, and coalition building and aligned interests. This mobilizes influence over authority, moral persuasion over mandates, and long-run relationship building. This is the kind of leadership that Kathy's describing here. Collins goes on to say, quote, "Our good to great research uncovered that leadership capabilities follow a 5-level hierarchy, with level 5 at the top. Level 5 leaders differ from level 4 leaders in that they are ambitious first and foremost for the cause, the movement, the mission, the work, not themselves, and they have the will to do whatever it takes to make good on that ambition. In the social sectors, the level 5's compelling combination of personal humility and professional will is a key factor in creating legitimacy and influence. After all, why should those over whom you have no direct power give themselves over to a decision that is primarily about you?" End quote. At first, it seems like Collins is describing executive leadership as being a match for a strong mayor context, and then legislative leadership for a council manager context. And I think that's largely right. But this notion of community ambition above personal ambition, producing influence and real leadership, regardless of the local government model, is a key takeaway for us here. The ditch to avoid? Reaching for the wrong kind of authority given the context. Applying the wrong kind of leadership in the wrong moment will create resistance, lockup, not momentum. Dr. Nalbandian tells a story about what it means to be mayor, the presence, humility, and leadership that's required to forge connections with real people in real moments. It exemplifies the type of legislative and executive leadership that Collins is describing here.
Can I give you another example?
Of course.
This is going to take a little time.
That's okay.
But, okay, so I was a mayor at the time. So it was 1993. And we had a tremendous flood that really did a lot of damage in Lawrence. And we get water in Kansas River from a dam upstream. And the worst thing that can happen to a dam, my understanding, is uncontrolled flow out of the dam, okay? Because you can't prepare for it downstream. We would receive a notice that the Kansas River is expected to rise X number of feet by such and such a time on Tuesday. And we could sit in City Hall, look out the window to the Kansas River and watch it go up. So I was the mayor at the time, it's like, okay, well, I know I can't do anything about this, but city manager, what do we do? That's the kind of thing, all right? And so the role of the mayor, what's the role of the mayor there? Okay, so I got a call from a resident who said, Mayor, we've had a lot of damage from the water. Would you consider coming out and taking a look at our homes, what's been done? I was really not interested. I mean, I was tired. I was, at City Hall, but I said, okay. So I asked her, I said, where do you live? And she said, I live near 4th and Michigan. And my heart dropped because I knew 4th and Michigan was one of the areas where the infrastructure had been constructed for a 10-year storm. Mm-hmm. This was a 100-year storm. Mm-hmm. So I went out there and there was about 10 people waiting for me. And they said, can we take you through our homes, our basements? What an experience. I'd never seen anything like it before. And then in the backyard, there was a greenway in the backyard, a lot of green space, and all this furniture had been piled up because it was soaked and it was of no use. And so all this furniture out there. So I finished and I walked back to the car, and that group of 10 people had grown to 30 people. The mayor's here. The mayor had come. It didn't matter what I did. It mattered that I showed up. Now, strong mayor, weak mayor, it doesn't matter. In people's eyes, you are the mayor, okay? Now, that story doesn't end there. 30 years later, I'm in the library. I go up to the information desk because I need something. And the lady, she's now in her 50s or something, but she looks at me and she says, are you Mr. Nalbandian? And I said, yeah. She said, you remember when you were the mayor and you came out to Michigan Street? I said, yeah. She said, I used to live on Michigan Street. And she had tears in her eyes. And being there, bringing people together, using the symbolic status that you have, not to order and command, but to learn, to facilitate, to connect. That's what it means to be a mayor.
I think this story brings us back to the heart of the matter. Structures matter. Charters, districts, voting rules, agenda creation, they create the avenues where authority flows. They tell us who has the power to say who's on the team, propose budgets, what topics will be discussed, and when. It's all really important work. But it's the people inside those structures. Those are the ones who actually show up and do the work. They walk through the flooded basements. Their presence is the balm. They hear the public's fears and desires and the dreams a community has for their kids and their grandkids. They're the leaders who have to lead constituents toward facing hard and sometimes unpleasant truths. And they're the ones who are tasked with rallying people around a central cause, especially in a world that seems so divided. These are the leaders who, ideally, modeled Jim Collins' leadership model of being radically ambitious, but not for themselves, instead for their communities. Mayors can bring vision, representation, and community identity. They show up after the floods, or they celebrate a community win, or they're present in a community loss. City councils can add a wider set of voices, reflecting diverse communities throughout a city and bringing context and shading to policies and initiatives, making them stronger. And city managers and the staffs that they lead can bring stability, expertise, and professionalism. Yeah, the structure matters, but in so many ways, the leaders who inhabit those structures are equally, if not more, important. So where do we go from here? Or rather, where do you go from here? The point of this podcast is to empower you to think and lead better in your local community. So with 4 episodes behind us, the questions turn away from our expert guests and toward you as a leader, as a community member. What does your community need going forward? Do the leaders your community elects embody vision, humility, and trustworthiness, and ambition for the growth of your city? Whatever form of local government exists, do you understand where the decisions are made and who's accountable for what? Quite frankly, are you engaged enough? Do you attend your local city government meetings? Do you talk with your neighbors, your colleagues, and your friends about the real-world issues that they actually face? Do you listen? So, what say you? Strong mayor or strong city manager? Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. Turns out it's just not that simple. But what I do know is that in the making of this podcast, I challenged myself to think differently about my biases, to think more critically about decision makers in my community, and to find new ways to be involved in local issues big and small. Communities that are engaged tend to have stronger futures. Our greatest hope in this work is not simply that you learned something, although I hope that you did, but more importantly that you were challenged to engage more deeply in your local city. Maybe we should spend less time leaning toward clear-cut conclusions, A's or B's, and spend more time keeping our minds wide open. I'm Evan Roselle from Sevenfold. Thanks for listening. And a special thanks to our guests, Kathy Sexton, Senior Management Consultant at Wichita State University's Public Policy and Management Center and former City Manager for the City of Derby, Kansas. Dr. Russell Arbin Fox, Professor of Political Science at Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. And Dr. John Nalbandian, Professor Emeritus at the University of Kansas School of Public Affairs and Administration and former City Council member and Mayor in the city of Lawrence, Kansas. A special thanks to our producer and engineer, Jack Crewell, and the whole team at Hutton for their support, encouragement, and modeling of what it looks like to be strong, curious leaders. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, I'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment and thank the leaders in local government throughout the state. The local electeds who care enough about their communities to shoulder heavy burdens and do the tough but transformative work of leading us forward. For the staff within local governments across the state, whose roles are as important as they are sometimes thankless, serving people in their communities who they may never meet. And for all those leaders like you who are invested in the success of your local communities, thank you. On behalf of Sevenfold, a Hutton company, I'm Evan Roselle. Thanks for listening to Wide Open.